Brothers and sisters, the greatest danger to God's people has never been persecution from the outside. It has always been deception on the inside. Ellen White warned again and again that many who call themselves God's people will be unprepared, not because they never heard the truth, but because they never lived it. The final test will not shock the world. It will shock the church. Why? Because knowledge without transformation creates false confidence. Because truth preached but not practiced becomes self-deception. Because it is possible to be busy in God's work and still be unready for God's presence. The final crisis will not ask you, do you know the Sabbath? It will ask, does the Sabbath know you? It will not ask you, are you an Adventist? It will ask, are you surrendered? Ellen White made it clear. Many will be shocked because they assumed association was the same as conversion. They believed outward reform was enough while inward pride, fear, and compromise remained untouched. When the test comes, character, not church membership, will decide everything. The shaking will not remove those who never believed. It will remove those who believed without obedience, who loved truth without holiness, who wanted heaven without the cross. God is not preparing a people who can argue doctrine, but a people who can stand when obedience costs everything. This is not a message of fear, this is a message of mercy. Because the warning means there is still time. Time to wake up, time to stop playing religion, time to seek God with our whole hearts. The final test will reveal who we already are. So today is the day to decide who we will become, not tomorrow. Not when the law changes, not when persecution begins. Now, may we not be among those who are shocked, but among those who stand unmoved because their faith was built on surrender, not convenience. Brothers and sisters, one of the most sobering truths ever emphasized is that truth without character will not save. It is possible to hold the correct beliefs, defend the right doctrines, and still be unprepared for the final test. Knowledge alone has never transformed a soul. Light that is not obeyed becomes darkness, and truth that is not lived becomes a witness against us. Many will be shocked when the final test comes because they assumed that knowing the truth was the same as being changed by it. They believed that understanding prophecy was equal to possessing holiness, and that belonging to the remnant church automatically meant they were ready to stand in the day of crisis. But the final test will not measure how much truth we have heard. It will reveal how much truth has shaped our character. Character is what remains when circumstances strip away comfort, reputation, and security. When pressure comes, when obedience costs livelihood, friendships, or even freedom, character, not knowledge, will decide our choices. A person may speak eloquently about righteousness by faith, yet shrink back when faith requires sacrifice. Another may preach the commandments boldly, yet fail when obedience demands humility, patience, and love. The danger is subtle. Truth can become a shield behind which pride hides. We can mistake confidence for consecration and assume that because we can explain the truth, we are living it. But heaven does not measure spirituality by information. Heaven measures it by surrender. The final test will not ask what we claim to believe, but what ruled our hearts. When the crisis comes, there will be no time to build character. Trials do not create faith, they reveal it. The habits we form in times of peace determine how we will stand in times of trouble. Those who compromise in small things now will not suddenly become heroes of faith later. The final test will only magnify the decisions we are already making in private life. Many will be shocked because they focused on outward reform while neglecting inward transformation. They corrected behavior but resisted heart change. They avoided open sin but cherished secret pride, resentment, and self-reliance. Yet the final conflict will expose not just what we do, but who we are. God is not preparing a people who merely look righteous, but a people who are righteous in heart. This message is not meant to discourage, but to awaken. It is a mercy that God warns his people before the test arrives. He invites us now to allow truth to go deeper than the intellect and take root in the soul. Truth must soften the heart, humble the spirit, and produce obedience born of love, not fear. The gospel is not simply about believing the right things. It is about becoming the right kind of people through Christ. Character is not formed by occasional religious effort, but by daily surrender. Every choice to obey when it is inconvenient, every moment of faithfulness when no one is watching, every act of trust in God rather than self, these are the bricks that build a character able to stand. When the final test comes, many will be shocked because they prepared their minds but neglected their hearts. But those who have allowed truth to transform their lives will not be shaken. They will stand not because they are strong, but because Christ has made them steadfast. And that is the preparation God is calling us to now before the test arrives. Brothers and sisters, one of the most sobering realities we must face is that the final test will be about loyalty, not labels. Many will be shocked because they trusted in a name rather than a relationship, in identity rather than obedience, in position rather than surrender. They assumed that because they belonged to the right church, understood the right message, and carried the right title, they were automatically secure. But heaven has never been impressed by labels. Heaven looks for loyalty of heart. It is possible to wear the name of God's people and yet resist God's authority in daily life. History proves this again and again. God's people have always possessed truth, yet many failed the test because their loyalty was divided. They wanted the blessings of God without full submission to His will. They wanted the protection of truth without the cost of obedience. When the final test comes, this divided loyalty will be exposed. The crisis ahead will not ask who we claim to be, but who we choose when obedience becomes costly. Loyalty is proven only under pressure. As long as following God is convenient, many appear faithful. But when loyalty requires sacrifice, when standing for truth brings loss, rejection, or suffering, labels fall away and the heart is revealed. The final test will separate those who serve God from those who merely associate with His people. Many will be shocked because they trusted in past experiences instead of present faithfulness. They relied on what they once did for God rather than what God is doing in them now. But loyalty is not inherited, and it cannot be stored up for a future crisis. It must be lived daily. Yesterday's faith cannot stand in today's test, and tomorrow's intentions cannot replace today's obedience. The danger is not open rebellion, but quiet compromise. Small acts of disloyalty tolerated over time weaken the soul. When conscience is ignored, when truth is delayed, when obedience is postponed, loyalty erodes. By the time the final test arrives, many will discover that their spiritual strength was never developed. They will want to stand, but their hearts were trained to yield. God is not preparing a people who are loyal only when watched, applauded, or supported by the majority. He is preparing a people who will stand alone if necessary, not out of stubbornness, but out of love. True loyalty is born from trust in God's character. It is not driven by fear of punishment, but by devotion to truth. This is why the final test will shock many. They assumed loyalty was automatic. They believed that correct belief guaranteed correct action. But belief without surrender produces presumption, not faith. Loyalty must reach the will. It must govern choices, habits, priorities, and motives. Anything less will collapse under pressure. Yet this message is filled with hope. God does not reveal the test to discourage us, but to prepare us. He invites us now to examine where our loyalty truly lies. Is it with comfort or conviction? With popularity or principle? With self or with Christ? Every day we are choosing, and every choice is shaping who we will be when the test comes. The good news is that God supplies the power He requires. Loyalty is not produced by human strength, but by divine grace received through daily surrender. Those who learn to trust God in small trials will trust Him in great ones. Those who practice obedience in quiet moments will stand firm when the world is watching. When the final test comes, labels will not save, titles will not protect, and reputation will not matter. Only loyalty to God, deep, genuine, and lived, will stand. May we not be among those who are shocked, but among those who are ready, because our loyalty was settled long before the test arrived. Brothers and sisters, one of the most dangerous deceptions facing God's people is the belief that religious activity equals spiritual readiness. Many will be shocked when the final test comes because they were busy, involved, and active, yet inwardly unprepared. They worked for God but did not walk with God. They were occupied with religious duties while neglecting personal surrender, and activity slowly replaced intimacy. It is possible to be deeply involved in church life and still be spiritually weak. One can preach sermons, teach classes, sing songs, attend meetings, and support the work, yet never allow the truth to search the heart. Religious activity can become a shelter that hides pride, self-dependence, impatience, and unconfessed sin. When the outer life looks faithful, the inner life often goes unchecked. This is why the shock will be so great. Many assumed that service proved readiness, but God has never measured spirituality by busyness. He looks beneath performance to motive, beneath action to character. The final test will not examine how much we did for God, but how fully God possessed us. Activity can impress people, but only surrender prepares the soul. The danger is subtle because religious work feels righteous. It gives a sense of usefulness and security. Over time, the soul may stop asking hard questions. Am I growing in humility? Am I learning obedience? Is my heart soft, teachable, and prayerful? Instead, confidence grows based on position and routine. This is how spiritual unpreparedness hides behind religious success. Many will be shocked because they mistook familiarity with sacred things for genuine holiness. Being around truth does not automatically transform the heart. One can handle holy things daily and still grow calloused. When worship becomes routine and prayer becomes formal, the soul slowly loses sensitivity to the Spirit's voice. The conscience no longer trembles at compromise. When this happens, outward religion continues, but inward life fades. The final test will expose this condition mercilessly. When obedience becomes costly, when faith demands trust instead of routine, religious habit will not sustain the soul. Activity cannot replace conviction. Those who relied on momentum will discover they have no anchor. Those who depended on structure will find it stripped away. Only an inner life rooted in Christ will stand. Another reason many will be shocked is that religious activity often brings approval. People may affirm our faithfulness, admire our dedication, and trust our leadership. Over time, human affirmation can quietly replace divine approval. The heart begins to work for recognition rather than transformation. But when the final test comes, there will be no applause, no crowd, no support system, only the soul alone with God. In that moment, borrowed faith will fail. God is not against religious activity. He calls his people to labor faithfully. But activity must flow from relationship, not replace it. Service is meant to be the fruit of a transformed life, not the substitute for one. When work outruns devotion, burnout or collapse is inevitable. The final test will simply reveal what was already missing. This message is a warning, but also an invitation. God is calling his people now to step out from behind activity and allow him to examine the heart. He invites us to slow down enough to listen, to pray honestly, to repent deeply, and to surrender fully. Preparation does not begin on public platforms, but in private places. It is formed in daily obedience, quiet faithfulness, and unseen decisions to trust God over self. When the final test comes, many will be shocked because they were active but not anchored, involved but not transformed. But those who chose relationship over routine will not be shaken. Their strength will not come from what they did for God, but from what God did within them. And that kind of preparation, built quietly over time, will stand when everything else falls. Brothers and sisters, one of the most misunderstood realities about the final events is this: The shaking does not create faith or unbelief. It just reveals what was already there. Many will be shocked, not because God changed, not because truth failed, but because the crisis exposed a condition of heart that had been forming quietly for years. The final test will not suddenly turn faithful people into unfaithful ones. It will uncover whether faith was genuine or merely assumed. In times of peace, it is easy to appear strong. When obedience costs little, loyalty feels natural. When truth is popular, standing for it seems effortless. But calm seasons can be deceptive. They allow unresolved issues to remain hidden, compromises to feel harmless, and spiritual weakness to go unnoticed. The shaking comes not to destroy God's people, but to reveal who has allowed truth to become life and who allowed it to remain theory. Many will be shocked because they believed the crisis itself would give them strength. They assumed that when the pressure came, courage would suddenly appear, faith would instantly mature, and conviction would rise to the occasion. But character is not formed in emergency moments. It is revealed there. The crisis does not produce patience, courage, or loyalty. It exposes whether those qualities were cultivated long before the test arrived. Every neglected duty, every postponed obedience, every cherished compromise is shaping the soul. These choices may seem small, but they are training the heart. A conscience repeatedly ignored grows quiet. A truth repeatedly delayed loses its power. By the time the final shaking arrives, many will discover that their spiritual reflex is not trust, but fear, not obedience, but self-preservation. This is why the shock will be so great. They expected strength, but found weakness. They expected faith, but discovered habit. The shaking reveals motives as well. Some follow God because it is safe, familiar, or socially supported. Others follow Him because they love truth more than comfort. When external supports are removed, when the crowd thins and consequences appear, motive becomes visible. Faith built on convenience collapses, but faith built on conviction stands. The shaking simply makes that difference impossible to hide. God allows the shaking not because He delights in loss, but because He values truth. A false sense of security is more dangerous than open opposition. If people believe they are ready when they are not, they will never seek preparation. The shaking is therefore an act of mercy. It reveals the real condition of the heart while there is still time to repent, surrender, and be healed. This revelation is deeply personal. The shaking exposes whether our relationship with God is borrowed or personal, whether our convictions are inherited or chosen, whether our faith depends on circumstances or on Christ. No one can stand on another's experience. No one can rely on past victories, family background, or church involvement. The shaking strips away everything except what is real. Yet this truth should not produce fear. It should produce urgency and honesty. God is inviting His people now to examine themselves, not in despair, but in hope. Whatever the shaking would reveal later can be addressed now. Weakness can become strength. Shallow faith can deepen. Divided loyalty can be healed. But this work must be done before the storm, not during it. Those who allow God to search their hearts now will not be surprised later. Those who respond to conviction today will not collapse under pressure tomorrow. When the final shaking comes, they will stand not because they are flawless, but because they are anchored. The shaking will not move them because it will reveal a faith that was already settled long before the test began. Brothers and sisters, one of the greatest mistakes God's people can make is believing that preparation for the final test happens during the crisis itself. Many assume that when the pressure comes, when the laws change, when opposition rises, they will suddenly become strong, faithful, and fearless. But preparation does not happen in crisis. Preparation happens in peace. Crisis only reveals what peacetime living has produced. When life is calm, choices seem small. Obedience feels optional. Prayer can be postponed. Compromise looks harmless. Yet these quiet moments are shaping the soul. Every day of peace is a training ground. Every decision to obey when it is inconvenient Every choice to trust God when there is no visible reward is forming habits that will decide our actions when the test arrives. Those who neglect preparation now will not suddenly develop it later. Many will be shocked because they waited for a dramatic moment to become serious with God. They believed urgency would create devotion. But spiritual strength does not rise in emergencies. It is built slowly, patiently, through daily surrender. Faith that has not been exercised in peace will collapse under pressure. Courage that has not been practiced in private will fail in public trial. History shows that God's people never rise higher in crisis than they lived in quiet times. When conscience has been trained to yield in small matters, it will yield in great ones. When obedience has been delayed repeatedly, the will becomes weak. By the time the final test comes, many will discover that their habits of compromise have already decided the outcome. Peaceful times expose what we truly value. When there is no threat, no persecution, and no immediate consequence, our choices reveal whether we love God for who He is or for what He gives. Do we seek Him when life is comfortable or only when trouble comes? Do we obey when it costs reputation, time, or convenience? These moments, unnoticed by others, are writing our future response to the final test. God allows seasons of peace not so His people can relax spiritually, but so they can prepare thoroughly. Peace is mercy. It is opportunity. It is time to deepen roots before the storm. A tree that waits for the hurricane to grow roots will be uprooted. In the same way, a faith that waits for crisis to mature will not survive it. Many will be shocked because they invested heavily in outward readiness while neglecting inward transformation. They learned signs, timelines, and events, but did not allow God to refine their character. Yet prophecy was never meant to replace preparation. It was meant to inspire it. Knowledge of coming events without personal holiness creates anxiety or presumption, not readiness. Preparation in peace means developing a habit of prayer that is real, not rushed. It means learning to hear God's voice when it is gentle, so we can recognize it when the world is loud. It means choosing integrity when dishonesty would be easier, patience when anger feels justified, and faith when fear seems reasonable. These quiet victories are the true preparation for the final test. God is calling His people now, not later, not during the crisis, but now to settle their loyalty, to surrender fully, and to allow Him to shape their character. He does not ask for perfection overnight, but for faithfulness today. Those who walk closely with Him in times of peace will instinctively trust Him in times of trouble. When the final test comes, many will be shocked because they assume preparation could be rushed. But those who prepared in peace will not panic in crisis. They will stand, not because they trained for emergencies, but because they lived faithfully when no one was watching. And that kind of preparation, formed quietly over time, will not fail when the test finally arrives. Brothers and sisters, one of the clearest and most challenging truths God has given His people is that He is calling for us total surrender, not partial commitment. Many will be shocked when the final test comes because they offered God parts of their lives, but not the whole heart. They surrendered what was easy, respectable, and visible, but held tightly to what was costly, hidden, and personal. They followed God on their own terms, not His. Partial commitment is dangerous because it feels sincere. It convinces the soul that it has done enough. A person may give God their time, but not their habits, their beliefs, but not their will, their public life, but not their private thoughts. Yet God does not negotiate for territory in the heart. He reigns completely, or He does not reign at all. The final test will expose whether our surrender was real or selective. Many will be shocked because they believed God would accept divided loyalty. They wanted Christ as Savior, but hesitated to accept Him as Lord. They trusted Him for forgiveness, but resisted Him in obedience. They prayed for blessings, but avoided transformation. Yet the final conflict will not allow divided hearts. When obedience carries consequences, Only wholehearted surrender will stand. Partial commitment thrives in comfortable religion. As long as faith fits neatly into daily life, compromise remains hidden. But when faith begins to interfere with comfort, ambition, relationships, or security, the limits of surrender are revealed. The final test will force a choice that partial commitment cannot survive. One cannot cling to self and stand fully for God at the same time. God has never asked his people for half-hearted devotion. From the beginning, he has called for the entire heart. This is not because he is demanding, but because anything less cannot save. A divided heart is unstable. It wavers under pressure. It hesitates when clarity is required. When fear and faith collide, whatever holds the deeper place in the heart will win. Many will be shocked because they delayed full surrender, believing they would yield completely when it truly mattered. They told themselves that when the crisis came, when the test was clear, they would choose God without hesitation. But surrender delayed is surrender denied. The will trained to resist God in small things will resist him in great ones. The final test will not suddenly produce full surrender where it has never been practiced. True surrender is not a single dramatic moment. It is a daily yielding of the will. It is choosing God's way when self has a stronger voice. It is trusting God when understanding is incomplete. It is obedience even when outcomes are uncertain. This kind of surrender reshapes desires, priorities, and identity. It does not merely change behavior, it changes ownership of the heart. God is calling his people now to examine what they are holding back. Is it pride, control, fear, bitterness, secret sin, or personal ambition? Whatever we refuse to surrender now will become the point of failure later. The final test will press precisely where surrender was resisted. That is why many will be shocked, not because the test was unfair, but because the heart was never fully yielded. This call to total surrender is not a call to despair. It is an invitation to freedom. God never asks for surrender without offering grace. What he requires, he supplies. When the heart is fully yielded, obedience becomes possible, faith becomes resilient, and fear loses its power. Total surrender does not weaken the believer, it anchors them. Those who surrender fully before the crisis will not be shaken by it. Their loyalty will already be settled. Their trust will already be placed. When the final test comes, they will not be forced into a decision. They will simply live out the one they made long before. And while many will be shocked because they held back, those who surrendered all will stand quietly, firmly, and faithfully because their hearts belonged wholly to God.